Well, as I told you before, we have also our own prejudices against the African Negroes. We consider them as inferiors. We have, of course, our own reasons for saying so.
Humor?
Yeah.
You're not white?
And not black?
Not black. What are you?
It's just in between.
To our forum discussion on the roots of prejudice. All four participants in today's discussion are high school students from Africa. Let me introduce them to you now. From Ethiopia, 17-year-old Nabiat Tafari. It was Nabiat's suggestion that we start this discussion with a prayer in case there should be violence later. What you heard was Nabiat from Ethiopia giving a prayer in the Ge'ez language. He's a Copt by religion, Amhara by race, Hebrew in origin, and an African since he's been to America. How should we start this discussion on prejudice? Would it be unfair to ask each of you what your own prejudices are? How about you, Nabi?
Actually, I'm prejudiced against the Italians, and I have been prejudiced against the Mohammedans. Since I arrived here, I have developed some new prejudices, and I never felt that I was a Negro till I came to this country.
Why?
Because my tutor in the monastery told me that I was not a Negro, but I was a sunburned Hebrew. I think you have a conception of Christianity. There are Orthodox Christians who don't allow to mix with Mohammedans. For example, I belong to a real Orthodox Christian religion known as the Copt, and there it says that its origin, of course, from Judaism also. It says that the animal must be properly slaughtered before you eat it, and if a Mohammedan has already slaughtered a sheep or a cow, for example, I will not eat with him.
I'm sure there are infinite prejudices in your country alone between Amharas and Hebrews and Arabs. You do say your origin is Hebrew, do you not? And most of the Ethiopians are.
Today's discussion will be between Miss Bizuaya Huagonafer of Ethiopia, Mr. John Golden of the United Kingdom, Miss Nalini Nair of India, and Mr. Nils Rajaharbo of Norway.
So what was happening for the 3,000 years that Ethiopia was an independent I'm honestly asking for information.
Oh yes, I understand. Well, Ethiopia has never had any contact with the outside world before. It has been just an isolated country since the 8th century. Well, before that, during the BC, before Christ's time, Ethiopia was a very civilized country, even more civilized than the Greek people, they said. But after that, when the Muslims came and tried to invade Ethiopia, Ethiopia kept to her religion. She was a very devoted Christian country, and it became just like an island surrounded by
I have
Muslims.
misunderstood you then, Bizu, and I apologize. What you were saying was the first public school was in 1905.
Yeah.
Because obviously you had private education for a long time before that.
Yeah, the private education was only for those who want to enter into priesthood.
I see.
And most of the people are farmers, and farmers do not need much education, so they don't go.
Are Americans prejudiced in their opinions about Africa?
They most certainly are. How could they be objective about African Negroes while they are prejudiced against American Negroes?
I disagree with you completely. I think that Americans are prejudiced for African natives and are very prejudiced against white people in Africa.
Well, I'm getting confused. How can Americans be for and against Africans at the same time?
Well, if I say anything, I'm going to confuse you still more. As an Ethiopian, I'm prejudiced against both white people and Negroes.
Nespin, how about your prejudices? You admitted to several at the beginning.
Well, as I told you before, we have also our own prejudices against the African Negroes. We consider them as inferiors. We have, of course, our own reasons for saying so.
Well, what are they, Nespin?
Well, first thing, we consider ourselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. It's only that our faces are burned that we look like Negroes. And also, we've been ruling part of Africa for hundreds of years during the 16th century, and we ruled part of Egypt, Sudan, and as far down as Mozambique.
You say that your people came down from the Middle East. You are not native African.
No, not at all.
Ethiopians.
As a matter of fact, we don't have the Negro blood at all. And we migrated from the Semitic type of the Saudi Arabia and Yemen and the countries just away from the Red Sea, and the origin could be said that some people drafted and came to the northern part of Ethiopia, and then they migrated inwards. And time went on, they stayed and then the Hamitic races from the bordering, from the south and from Sudan and things like that, from the countries in Africa.
Excuse me for interrupting, but if you don't have Negro blood, then, this is news to me, the Ethiopians, I would think, wouldn't have any particular feeling about race relations in other parts of Africa.
We don't at all feel any relationship. It's none of our concern. I mean, we just don't care about it, as we don't have the Negro blood. We shouldn't have to worry ourselves. I mean, the color you might, the color of my face is just dark because it's due to the exposure of the sun. And my country is a mountainous country. It's 800 feet above sea level. And it's more or less nearer to the sun than is the other countries that lay near the equator.
Yuma?
Yeah.
You're not white?
And not black?
Not black. What are you?
It's just in between.
Yuma, and I would like to know, are you, for instance, very much interested in the South African race policy? Or do you stand more or less objective towards that?
Not at all. We wish you would do things fairly. I mean, we wish you don't treat the native South Africans as you do right now. But as a matter of fact, we don't care. We just listen to your policies and things that go on in South Africa. But I'd like to ask you one question. Would it become more, would you think it would be a little...
Wait, just before...
Would the matter be worse or better, within these few years? Or what is the stand right now of this South African problem?
Could I just ask you another question before I answer yours?
Yeah.
Is there any discrimination, for instance, between the separate tribes in your country? How do you, for instance...
I'm very happy you brought that point. As a matter of fact, we, the Amhara tribes, consider ourselves superior to the other tribes, to the adjacent tribes that live in this same community. And we just consider them inferior and consider ourselves superior. And that could be something of segregation, but it's not actually in the sense that you take it and the Americans in Little Rock take it. It's just very unprominent.
Do you mean that you think that the other tribes are perhaps a little too primitive, for instance?
Not a matter of primitiveness or so. It's just a matter of ignorance, I shall say.
Oh.
The Amhara tribes are more cute and clever. And that's why, they are just...
That's your tribe?
Yeah, that's my tribe. I'm proud of
very
it.
modest, yes.
Yeah.
And Yuma, do you have whites in Ethiopia? White people?
Foreigners?
White people, yes.
Yeah, lots of them. We have the Americans, as a matter of fact. They're working in different departments. And I'd like to say one point on that. They seem to be more cooperative in... they looked as though they are cooperative in my country, and I thought it was because they were in a foreign country that they should cooperate. But no, I proved it right here. They have assemblies in communities and things like that. They are more cooperative than I actually saw it in my country.
Yuma, just to get back to another point, do you then think, for instance, it's fair that if there is discrimination in Ethiopia, even between, well, the same race and the same nation...
Not the same race, of course the same nation.
The same nation. But do you think then it's fair to judge South Africans as white towards black? If you don't, for instance, acknowledge the less good Ethiopians, well...
We do acknowledge them. I don't mean we don't actually consider our discrimination, what you call it, is not as prominent and worldwide known as it's in South Africa. That's it.
Well, what are we actually saying here? That there is all kinds of discrimination, and discrimination is all right as long as it isn't too prominent, or as long as it isn't between black and white? What are we saying here anyway?
No, it's like this. She said, do you think the discriminations in your country is good, or the segregation...
Excuse me, let's hear